Welcome to Escaping Purgatory, a podcast where we rewatch Supernatural, then talk it through in the hopes that we can finally escape this show.
Join us each week, leave comments on upcoming episodes, and together we can escape the Supernatural Purgatory.
Uh-huh.
The exit feels further away than ever this week.
Yes. Yeah, it does. This was an emotional kick in the nuts.
Yep.
I was going to say another word, but I was like, that would definitely get the explicit tag on. But yeah, so this week we're talking about episode 7 of season 3, and it's called Fresh Blood. Boy, oh boy. This only got 8.5 on IMDb. I'm surprised it was so low. Like, it had all of the characters and such good storytelling and emotional moments, and just like, and again, you know, with these season 3 episodes, nothing is filler. Everything has a point, and like, boy, did this point hurt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There was so much in this, I feel, about everything. I mean, we are coming up to the middle of this season, so it makes sense that the emotions would maybe be ramping up a bit. Presumably, I guess if you want to go by the timeline, we're getting close to halfway through the year until Dean's supposed to go to hell, and like the halfway point is going to be pretty emotional. Yeah, I'm not too happy about this one, but I am, because it's excellent storytelling.
This episode also made me realize, I know last week we had said, you know, Gordon was my boy, which it's more Sterling Brown is my boy. Like, after this, I'm like, okay, what has he been in? And I'm going to obsessively watch like everything that he's done. I know he was also in Frozen 2, which again, like, these two people, like these two characters that he was played in his lifetime, I'm just like, what? Because he's like the Arendelle like guard person.
I have not watched Frozen 2.
Well, you're not missing out on much, to be honest. The good thing about Frozen 2 is how visually stunning it is. Like, the environments that they made are amazing. Everything else is just like, meh. So, who did this episode?
So this episode is written by Sarah Gamble and directed by Kim Manners. And oh boy, you could tell. Kim Manners, you've outdone yourself again. It was so good. Like, the directing in this is so good. It's so wonderful. And this is, I think we were saying before, like, people miss the visuals of the early seasons. And it's like, no, you don't actually miss it. You miss seasons 1 and 2. And I'm going to rephrase that and say, no, you miss Kim Manners. Yeah. I think you're right on that one. Mm-hmm. He just seems to understand all of these characters. And like, I wonder what his process was, because he understands the script. He understands where the story is going. He understands how the actors work. He like just everything to just then bring out some of the best performances. Like, this was probably one of my favorite Sam performances of the season so far. Same.
It's funny because like Dean really kind of wasn't in this episode.
No.
Like,
no.
But even the things he was in were outstanding.
It's just a great, honestly. So far, this is my favourite episode of season 3. This is definitely a standout. And I think it's because great actors, great writer, great director, all just came together into like an excellent episode.
So I guess we can get into it, unless there's something else you wanted to add?
No.
So the recap this week was really, really short. It was... I would say maybe a minute and a half. It was really, really, like, it was just the usual intro. Dad's gone. They need to kill all the monsters. Brief Bella introduction, a brief Gordon introduction, and also Kubrick at the prison, and like a little bit of the bad day at Black Rock.
Yeah. But
like none of the funny bits, which kind of
makes sense. It would not have fit here.
Yeah. And then Gordon saying like, I need to get the hell out of here, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, this episode, it starts straight into it as well. This is not a Monster of the Week episode, and you can kind of tell by how it starts. So, we go straight into this episode, and we know it's not a Monster of the Week episode because we're seeing some characters that we already know. Bella is parked up underneath a sort of railroad bridge, I think that is, and she's getting into her car, which I thought would be fancier, but fine, it's a car. Suddenly, Gordon appears behind her. She doesn't know who he is. She knows of him. He introduces himself and she's like, oh, I've heard of you.
Yeah.
But they've never interacted before, which makes sense. He obviously immediately threatens her with a gun because this is Gordon.
Yep.
That's how he gets things done. And he wants to know from her where the Winchesters are because he's heard a rumor that they worked together recently, which they did in the last episode. So she's going to tell him where they are. She kind of asks why, and he says,
Sam Winchester's the Antichrist.
I'd heard something about that.
It's true.
From my good friend, the Easter Bunny.
Bella's met Sam. He's just like a big, like, floppy puppy, and she's like, you can see the confusion on her face. Like, Sam? Sam is?
Sam's the other. And I mean, this interaction basically confirms that Bella is Dean.
Yeah.
Like, she's the first Dean-coded character in the entire, like, series.
Oh my gosh, she is. Yeah, I love that. I don't know what do you even call that character trait of, like, being snarky in the face of danger? Like, what is this?
I guess, well, because we know where her story goes, it's that kind of, like, recklessness, no self-preservation.
A devil-may-care attitude, if you will.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that Gordon's clearly still wearing his prison uniform, right? He's just got like a blue jumpsuit on.
Yeah, I think so.
So this is like, he has not stopped. He got out of prison. He's like, this is the thing I'm doing.
I mean, we already know he's like super mission oriented.
Yes.
I mean, this episode proves it, but like, there's nothing he won't do to get his goal.
Yeah, he's very goal driven. They do have a bit of back and forth, you know, like you said, and basically Bella offers to sell him the information. She's like, threats don't work on me, but like offers do, or deals do. But Gordon just got out of prison and he has like $3,000. So he's like, I can give you that. Bella spots on him some kind of hex bag that he has, which he reluctantly hands over because it's apparently quite powerful. So Bella rings Dean and asks where he is. And I just wrote, I wonder why does she have his number and not Sam's? And this is just playing into my theory that they definitely had.
Yeah, and like, and the fact that like she can just ask him where he is and he's gonna tell her.
Yeah, something changed between them, right? This definitely happened.
Yeah, for sure. What happened, Bella? What happened, Dean? We need these details.
I ship it because I kind of love characters interacting with basically mirrors of themselves and then finding some kind of meaning through that. I don't think that actually happens for them. I think they come out of this exactly the same as how they entered it. But
yeah.
I'm not saying their relationship between them would be good and healthy, but it would be hot.
No. I mean, what relationship that Dean has ever been in has been healthy? Let's be real.
Oh, look.
Should we not get into that right now?
Let's not get into that right now.
that will spiral into a rather long discussion. So there's a trend sort of going on with these season 3 episodes. We are usually joining them like in the middle of a hunt. Like even in the last episode, they were already on the way to the case. There's no sort of like, oh, here's a case, but maybe it's a case, maybe it's not. There's no sort of back and forth. So far, it's all just been like, we're on to the next one, which I guess is why they use the like, we've got to kill as many sons of bitches as we can because they're not distracted by anything. Yeah, essentially. Yeah, so we're straight in the middle. We're jumped right into the action. Sam and Dean are walking through like a warehouse, like an abandoned warehouse of some kind.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, and
I do love this. There's this like a pool of blood, and the episode name comes up.
I noticed that too. That was great. That's great timing. Perfect editing, guys.
So it says fresh blood, and I was like, ha ha ha. There's a guy, he's got some sort of like mark on his neck, so of course they're hunting some kind of beast. And so Sam runs over and helps the guy, and Dean then goes after the woman, because he says, where does she go?
Yeah.
The man gestures sort of over there. Dean sort of ends up in this a largish room area, and there's many directions this vampire could have gone. So he decides to take his giant knife and cut his arm.
Yeah.
And oh boy, that made me really uncomfortable, because like I feel like this is the first time they've really shown that kind of injury, because they start to do that more often to show that they're not like a vampire, they're not a werewolf, they're not blah blah blah. Because you see like Dean's hesitancy about doing it.
Yeah.
Kim Manners being Kim Manners had to just really focus on that, and I'm just like, ooh.
I know I've never understood this, because there are less painful places to do that. Like just pointing that out, like especially the part when they do the magic stuff and they cut their palms for blood. It's like that's going to be it take a really long time to heal, because you're constantly moving your hand, and second of all, like that's a really painful place to do that. They should, anyway, whatever. There should be an easier way to do that. But yeah, I agree. They definitely lingered on that. There was a lot of lingering shots in this episode, especially surrounding like blood, which makes sense with the theme, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. You know, Dean does his Dean thing.
Smell that? Come and get it!
It made me laugh because of the amount of people who say that Jensen smells good. And so the vampire appears, and it's for those of you who may not know, she is also an actress who was in Buffy, and she was Harmony in Buffy, and who also got turned into a vampire. And she was also on Angel for a bit too.
I think that's a fun cameo. They must have known that was the thing.
There were at least 4 Buffy actors that come on the show.
At least
there was Tara. I've forgotten all of their actor names. We got Harmony, who was a vampire here, and then we get Spike and Cordelia. So again, to bring it back to the convention, Tammy Pennicott, he was saying that like you have your like Canadian-based actors, and they just they essentially get recycled in like all the shows. So I think that's kind of what happened. Like they were probably there.
I mean,
still.
Yeah, and also it's fun. Like, oh, okay, what actors have we got available to do this part? Oh, look at the list. This person was in Buffy, and we're doing a vampire episode. Absolutely perfect. The fans will love this. It's all very nice. I quite like that.
And then, so again, Dean is particularly reckless in this episode. Like this recklessness mirrors so many seasons coming up.
Yeah,
like it happens constantly that he does this. It's kind of it's upsetting to see that it was so early.
Yeah, I know. And
so he yells, "Come on, free lunch," and she attacks. The first of many vampire bites he gets this episode.
Yeah.
Happens. And then he stabs her in the neck with some dead man's blood.
Yeah, he gets bitten a lot in this episode, actually. Somebody thought they were trying to say something. So Sam appears as she's kind of dropped to the floor, and he says, like, cutting it close, like he's clearly not amused with Dean's plan.
Antics.
Yeah, antics. I like the way Dean just says "ow." Like he was obviously running on adrenaline or whatever, and is only just now feeling what he did. Of course, they tie this vampire to a chair in wherever they're staying. Some kind of squatting situation again going on. I guess they knew that they were going to bring a vampire back there because they'd covered the windows with like mattresses and stuff.
I know, like it's we are very much like 3 days into a hunt.
Definitely, yeah.
Like this is not the beginning of what was going on.
You can see their like living situation like deteriorating because they never really have to clean up after themselves. So I just imagine they like live somewhere like. It just gets food containers and stuff everywhere, and then they just leave. Like, yeah, it must have been hard when they moved into the bunker, like having to learn to clean up after themselves.
Well, I think Sam knows how to clean up after himself because he did have an apartment with a girlfriend.
That's true.
So he was probably the one who's like, all right, come on, Dean, let's clean up.
Yeah, I mean, we find out later that Dean's quite like a bit of a neat freak. Like he does like everything tidy and organized, but I think. That definitely comes later. It's not now.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So they have this woman tied up. We find out her name is Lucy in this scene. She's very confused. Like she remembers what's happened, that she doesn't know she's a vampire. Like, she thinks that she's been drugged in some way, or that, you know, and she's just not come down from the high. It's really interesting how they interact with her. Like, Dean's quite unsympathetic to her as he's talking. You can see mirrors of Gordon, like you can see Gordon in Dean, like some parts of how he interacts with vampires. Sam's much more sympathetic. But what's interesting is, you know, they talk to her and kind of sort of explain to her what's going on. When they go out of the room to talk to each other about what they're going to do about it, Dean does seem quite upset by the situation.
It takes Sam less time to believe Lucy. Yeah. Whereas I think the last kind of like her sort of plead of like, I just want to come down. Because she also explains that like she met this guy and he just put it in my drink and like all she wanted to do was party. That's all she wanted to do.
To me, it's the fact that Dean treats... I don't like him in this scene. He treats it like she's done something wrong. Like, I know it's... Okay, yes, it is a stupid thing to take drugs from a stranger at a bar or a club, right? But how is she going to know that it's vampire blood? Like, he says it to her like it was vampire blood, like it's obvious. And it's like, but people don't know about the supernatural, Dean. And yeah, she did something dumb, but she's clearly supposed to be like fairly young, in her 20s or whatever. People do dumb stuff. They don't deserve to be turned into vampires.
No, and I think that is probably what made, like I said, as soon as she started to the beginning of her explanation, Sam believes her like straight away and like tries to. I think it's which he realizes much faster that she was unwillingly turned. Yeah, which probably reminded him of like Maddie.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. There's other parallels to Maddie in this as well.
Yeah, and like I said, when they go out and like they talk, the little head shake that Sam does, that was moment one for me of like, this episode's gonna suck emotionally, because then we hear like her pleading and then like a very much like a guillotine sort of slice.
Yeah.
And he like Sam flinches, and I was just like, it was powerful, but not quite as powerful as like Dean's flinch in Heart. This episode kind of mirrors Heart quite a lot in some aspects.
It does, yeah. This moment for me, because I mean, in Heart, Dean wasn't necessarily sad about Maddie. He was sad that Sam had to kill her. He was sad for Sam. Whereas I think here it's different, because I don't actually think Sam is sad for Dean in this situation. He's sad for Lucy, the girl, because of what happened to her. I mean, I do. Again, like the kind of unwilling turning. The thing is, it's a weird thing about consent in this episode, because yes, she consented to taking this drug from this guy, but it wasn't informed, right? Because she didn't know what it would do. And there's very much a difference between like consenting to something and then having like informed consent and knowing all the ramifications of it. I felt sorry for her, but I mean, I guess at this point, I don't know what other choice they had. In later seasons, they had other choices with what they could have. They could have helped Lucy, I feel, because they definitely maybe knew some vampires that could help her out. Yeah, here they don't know any. You know, literally, if they turn her onto the street, she's going to kill more people.
Right. And she'd already killed 2 people and almost tries to kill a 3rd. Oh my god, would she have turned out to be like another Jenny?
Oh, don't even start with this. Look. I used to love vampires and supernatural, and like Jenny the vampire has tainted that for me, I feel.
I think I will always love the alpha vampire. I know he's not going to come up for a very long time, but
Rick Worthy's great.
Jenny can only do so much, but she can never take away from him.
Yeah, okay, fine.
We're in a hospital room, and Gordon walks in like very like forcefully, and Kubrick's here, and it was at this moment I realized, oh, it's an evil Bobby and Rufus. I mean, yeah, we haven't been introduced to Rufus right yet, but like I was like, oh, nice. The guy's like, well, I've already spoken to cops, and he's like, we're the FBI, just tell me everything you know. He said, oh, well, this crazy woman, she gnawed at my neck. Gordon asks if she bled on him, and they're making sure like you don't have a cut on you, she didn't go in mouth or anything like that. And he's like, no, she just bit my neck. Kubrick just is like, well, the bite doesn't matter, but she was carrying a deadly virus, and
she bit me in the neck.
The bite doesn't matter. You have to actually ingest the blood to be infected.
Oh. Good thing too. We'd have had to kill you.
Huh.
And the guy kind of tries to laugh it off.
Yeah.
But Gordon's like straight face. He's just like, oh, you're not joking.
No, Gordon was not joking. No, he was not. They asked him to describe the guys who saved him. He's like, one was really tall. And like, Gordon's face, it's kind of like, got him. Like, it's just...
Well, he does know that they're in the area.
I know, but...
So, I do love the fact that, like, it's Sam because he's really tall. Like, he didn't catch that he had long hair or anything like that. It was just, he was tall.
I mean, it's a dark in a warehouse. Like, how else would you describe them? It's interesting that they call vampire blood like a virus in this. I know they're obviously trying to explain to him what it could do without telling him about vampires, but it does very much kind of work like that, right? It's sort of the way it transmits and stuff, which makes what this guy is doing, like infecting people purposely, like way worse, I feel. It almost is transmitted like a sexually transmitted disease. I don't know, it's weird, but they do that with vampires a lot in all different media as well.
It's now... We're at another location, and Sam and Dean are exiting the bar that Lucy had told them that she was at. They didn't find anybody who matched this guy's description, because they'd also mentioned that 2 other blonde women had gone missing from the same area. Yeah, they look across the street, and they see like a man guiding a blonde woman away. They're like, oh, that must be the guy. And of course, it is.
They got super lucky with that one, actually.
We cut to who we've learned is a man, or the vampire named Dixon. And he has this woman there. And just as he's about to do the dropper into her mouth, Sam and Dean arrive and like... Dude, they're like, hey!
Hey! Yeah, I love it so much. Like, there's something about this, I don't know why I found it quite amusing, but Sam basically like throws the girl out of the alley. Like, he's just like, go! Like, he literally just like shoves her out. Dean obviously tackles the vampire because he does, gets thrown into a building. This Dixon guy runs off. There's a really good... I don't know why. So Sam and Dean run after Dixon. And there's a shot of them running towards the camera and then like stopping short because they've like seen something. And I don't know why I find that shot so funny. For me, people running at the camera is just, I always expect them to crack when they get there. Like always expect them to just be out of character as soon as they get to the beginning. And I don't know if it's just like gag reel shenanigans or like other shows, but I love that shot.
I mean, there's just something I feel for me like running towards a camera is always going to be comedic because of things like, you know how we spoke about Del Boy and Trotter being the Batman and like them running out of the fog. Well, that is always what I expect when people run at the camera.
I mean, Bad Day at Black Rock as well, where Sam like they do that shot and Sam just falls out of like falls down is great. So kind of I think about that as well.
You're just sort of conditioned to believe think that something funny is gonna happen when they run towards the camera.
Yeah, exactly. It's not for me a serious shot. It's at all ever. Like it could be the most serious moment ever. If they do that shot, I'm like, ha.
But in fact, it's actually Gordon and Kubrick who are at the end of the alley and they have their guns drawn. They start firing like they have endless bullets. It's actually quite intense. You know, Sam, they basically have this huge shootout between two of them. Dean, again, is being really reckless, and he says, I'll draw them off. You run. Sam tries to stop him, but Dean ignores him and just, like, runs.
He runs, like, over a car.
Yeah.
Like through a parking garage thing. It's great.
It is great, but at the same time, like, I feel like running over a car is like the slowest thing you could do and super easy to get shot at.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't get hit. Like, they were probably still firing at him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kubrick goes after Dean and Gordon starts to, you know, sneaky hunt around to try and find Sam. Gets to the hiding spot of Sam. It's empty. Gordon turns around and the vampire's there.
Yeah.
And Gordon gets knocked out and carried away.
The thing is that this is Gordon's weakness, right? He's so focused on going after Sam now that he seems to be blind to all other danger. So of course the vampire managed to get the drop on him. Yeah,
because you would think the reason why, because Sam and Dean are still hunters, they still are working cases, and they know that they're still working cases because that's exactly what that's why he approached Bella in the first place.
Yeah.
So you would think, okay, well, they're here. They know there's vampires in the area, and they just stop. Like, they're obviously trailing them in some kind of way.
Yeah.
I don't know. And also, I think Kubrick's also fixated on it, with his, like, God obsession. So I don't think either of them are really that concerned with vampires at this point.
No, I don't think so either. I said it's very, like, blinders on. So it makes sense that he gets got.
We cut back to the hotel room, and can I just say, where's the pool of blood? Right? They beheaded a woman, and there's like no evidence of it. Sam is like pacing in the room. Dean sort of casually enters, and Sam's acting very much like a worried mother.
There you are.
Sorry, I stopped for a slice.
Nice move you pulled back there, Dean, running right at the weapons.
Well, what can I say? I'm a badass.
Sam is calling out his reckless behavior, and and Dean just again brushes it off. Don't worry about me. I'm good. I'm Batman. I'm untouchable. And Sam starts to question, like, how did they find us? Like, that was way too fast for him to be able to find us.
Yeah.
Dean calls Bella a bitch once again.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly he manages to put it together, actually. That it's like, oh, Bella sold us out. And he is actually annoyed. Like, because I don't feel like they parted on the best of terms in the last episode. So I'm not entirely sure why he's so surprised. Because they know who Bella is. But I guess he didn't think that she would go this far.
Bella, if we make it out of this alive, the first thing I'm gonna do is kill you.
You're not serious.
Listen to my voice and tell me if I'm serious.
I don't think she realised the danger that she was putting them in. Like, I really thought, like, from the conversation that they have, she's quite flippant, right, about it. And just saying, like, you guys can handle yourself. And he's serious because she's put Sam in danger.
Yeah.
By telling Gordon where they are. Lauren Cohen's a great actor. I got from this that she was actually like, oh, maybe I have made an error here. The thing is, she didn't have a choice, right?
This is true.
And she does think that they can handle themselves because she's seen them in action like a couple of times now, and they pretty much can handle themselves. So why would she think they couldn't if a hunter came after them? I think where Dean is maybe annoyed is that she didn't give them the heads up after that had happened. Like, she really should have done that. Again, I think she regrets that she didn't do it. Like, she very easily could have called Dean and be like, hey, just got out of a well-weird situation with a guy called Gordon Walker. Like, maybe, he's out of prison and seems to be after you. Like, maybe heads up. And I think Dean would have been okay with that.
Yeah. Well, she does try to explain that she was going to, but got sidetracked, which again, like, I totally believe.
It just shows Bella's very much is out for herself. Like, as much as she might maybe like the Winchesters now, she's not an ally.
This sort of interaction reminded me a little bit of in Rick and Morty, where Rick is like, you got to look after number one, and I'm number one. And I feel like that's very much like Dean's attitude. Is like, you got to look out after number one, and I'm like, me and Sam are number one. Like, come on. You got to tell us everything.
Dean does have main character syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Because he is. But you can't have it in your interactions with people. Gordon wakes up. He's tied to a bed frame in this kind of dark room. He sees opposite him 2 blonde women who are tied up. And Dixon comes in and like feeds them blood. So they're kind of new vampires, I think. Lucy had said before that she was so hungry that she broke out. And I'm guessing this is where she broke out from. So this guy clearly has them tied up. Because I feel like we find out later about vampires that when they're first turned, they're like incredibly, insatiably hungry.
Yeah.
And I feel like the first time they drink human blood is when they can't be turned back.
I think you're right. That was definitely ringing some bells for me as well. But I guess, we'll learn all of that as we go. I do find it really, like, this whole interaction was really weird. Like, this Dixon guy, like, he was very much a creep. Like, he was saying he's trying to, like, form a family. Because he's looking for a very specific type and changing people unwillingly. And I don't feel like when these women eventually, like, come down and, like, realize their situation, they're not going to want to be around this person. They're not going to treat him like a father.
But they're gonna be reliant on him. Like, this is the thing, right? He's building a family of people who are reliant on him to look after them. It is creepy and weird. I have problems with this also, but for a different reason. Basically, yeah, like I said, it turns out Dixon is trying to build a vampire family because hunters have killed his, and so he doesn't have anybody left, including his daughter, and he shows Gordon like a picture of a woman from like the 1800s. What's interesting here is what they're saying about, I took this as what they're saying about found family, because this is clearly not his actual daughter, right? Like the picture that he's showing Gordon is not his actual daughter. I don't feel you get that vibe, because he also refers to the other women as his daughters. So like biologically she probably isn't. That's how I read it. So for him to try and replace his found family, because like his original vampire family with new people, is interesting, with the fact that they then very heavily mirror this character to Dean. I just thought it was interesting about what are they trying to say here? I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't have a fully formed thought. I think maybe we need to talk about this later on, actually.
And so, I mean, it is kind of interesting that, like, Gordon cannot see these vampires as anything but monsters, and, like, he calls the women fang whores, even though, like, they had no choice. Like, he doesn't understand that. They have now been turned, so therefore they are the enemy. Like, there's no grey.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that kind of happened earlier with Sam and Dean, but they felt bad about it. They, you know, there was nothing, they knew there was nothing else they could do. You know, the way that Gordon's just like very dismissive of the fact that this vampire is in pain. I mean, granted, it was creepy, and like, I didn't particularly like the idea of like what he's doing, but he's desperate.
I think it's really, you know, Gordon has that black and white thinking between monsters and humans, and it's never been as obvious as it is here, I feel. It's like, it's so interesting to have like a racist sort of allegory by Gordon because he is a black man, and then him like spouting literally like derogatory terms, these vampires and stuff. Yes, okay, he has been like abducted or whatever, but you know that this doesn't come from that place. It's from he's been thinking, like, he thinks it's about vampires the whole time. His hatred is almost like blinding as well. He can't see what's going on around him. It's the same as when he's like focused on Sam. Like, his hatred for Sam is so like blinding that he couldn't see the danger of the vampires. Here, his hatred for the vampires is so blinding, he can't see what Dixon's about to do. Yeah.
His way of antagonizing this vampire is not done in jest.
No.
You could almost imagine Dean saying all of this stuff, but he would be doing it like without the venom behind it.
Yeah.
Whereas because Gordon means every word that he's saying, this vampire gets extremely angry and basically changes his plan. Instead of being basically a blood bag for the two vampires, he changes him. And I feel like this point in the show is when I realized, oh, they love making fears realized in this show.
Yes.
Because, you know, that this was Gordon's probably biggest fear, was to be turned into a monster or be a monster. Because as a hunter, he never felt that way. Even though what he was doing, like some of the times he was being very monstrous. He never thought himself that way. Now he's becoming the thing that he hates the most, the thing he fears the most. And like, I was like, oh, goddamn this show. And I was thinking about more of the characters, and all of their fears get realized.
So I think you're onto something. I would replace... Oh, I hate myself. So like you say that, yeah, their fears are being realized. I think in season 3, it does confront what people are afraid of. But I think that what it is doing is putting all of the characters in their own personal hell. Leading up to the end of season 3.
Yeah.
Because for this vampire, being alone, not having his family is his personal hell, right? For Gordon, being a vampire, the thing he hates the most would be his own personal hell. And there are other examples in previous episodes as well, where kind of people have got their comeuppance, I guess. And it's always been linked to like, something they fear the most, or, you know, the worst possible situation they could be in. Dean sees over and over again people kind of going to hell, and then it's all leading to
Yeah, and then, I mean, we also have Sam, who he's already said in the previous episode that he hasn't been able to save anybody. He feels like he hasn't been able to save anybody, which is probably his personal hell.
I feel
part of it.
I think him not being able to save Dean is part of that as well. There's a lot of parallels here, and I think we'll see more later on. I mean, coming up, we've got Mystery Spot, and like, what is that if not Sam's own hell created that? You know, there's a lot, and I think definitely this episode is the clearest that you see that. I think we'll bring this theory up again because I definitely think it applies later on also. But there, Gordon has kind of got his comeuppance for his hate. You know, what the best thing, I guess, to do is to turn someone into something that they hate.
Well,
I'm just thinking about this. Like, is that actually?
It's really not, because it would have been fine if Dixon wasn't so reckless.
Yes.
I do think it's interesting that, like, in Supernatural, it's really easy to turn people into vampires. There's no, like, you have to drain the person first, then give them the blood. It's just, like, you have to just literally ingest a couple drops and you're a vampire.
Yeah.
Which I think it is treated more like a disease than it is, like, a supernatural thing, which I think is kind of interesting. You know, the way that Gordon is, like, yelling no, I felt that in my soul.
Yeah.
Like, it was really... It was, like, for being a bad guy, I felt bad at that point for him.
Well, yeah, because as you said, that this is his biggest fear.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, he's probably had, like, nightmares about this situation. And now it's happening. And again, like, talking about consent in this episode, this is very unconsensual exchange that's happening. And I think it's read as such as well, if you catch my drift. Yeah, it's definitely an assault. Exactly.
So we then cut back to Sam and Dean, and they are in their motel room. They are getting somewhat sidetracked now as well, because, you know, Sam points out that the vampire's still out there. He could still be trying to find victims. But Dean's like, well, we have to go after Gordon.
First things first.
Gordon.
About that, when we find him, or if he finds us.
Yeah?
Well, I'm just saying he's not leaving us a whole lot of options.
Yeah, I know. We gotta kill him.
Really? Just like that? I thought you would have been like, no, we can't. He's a human. It's wrong.
No, I'm done. I mean, Gordon's not gonna stop until we're dead.
I also wonder if they turned Gordon in the story so that not only would it be like a cruel irony, but also it stops them from having to kill an actual human. Even as bad as Gordon was, I do think that they still are, rightly so, hung up about just killing people, even if they are the worst.
Yeah, I agree with you, because they could not have got away with the scene with Gordon and Sam at the end if he had still been a human, because that would have been like crossing a line, I feel. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it gives them a reason. It absolves the Winchesters of that sin, essentially. Yeah. Because it's still okay to kill monsters in this show. They're not seen as people.
Now, let's go meta with this. Because they are who they are, and Chuck wants things to happen the way they are. Did Chuck write him to become a vampire so that they could kill him, with less guilt, conflict? Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, like, Chuck loves vampires, so he also loves some irony, I feel.
Also, with the conversation that happens next on the phone, I was like, oh yeah, this is so totally Chuck writing right here.
Yeah, there's some Deus Ex Machina, like, bullcrap going on with that. What I find interesting about Gordon is that he's completely 100% right. Actually, because they kind of had to set this up to get rid of him, because really, he is right. If he did take Sam... I'm sure I said this before about Gordon. If he took Sam out, a lot of problems would actually be solved.
Yeah, I mean, Can you imagine if he had succeeded in this and had killed Sam? Well, Dean has nothing left. He can't make another deal. Bobby's not going to make a deal.
No.
Sam would literally be dead for good. It would be the end of Supernatural. And it would be Gordon Walker.
Yeah, I like Gordon as a character because of that. But yeah, I do feel like this is all very conveniently set up for them to get rid of him without any guilt whatsoever.
Yeah.
Definitely. So talking of, Deus Ex Machina, Bella rings. And she's found Gordon for them. She knows exactly where he is because she used the spirit board to do it. So I guess it still works with a bullet hole in it. Because
I guess so.
Dean put one right through it. She said,
The spirit had a message for you.
Leave town, run like hell, and whatever you do,
Don't go after Gordon.
for whatever that's worth.
oh yeah, Bella, the spirit said it. You don't care at all. It was the spirit. I love that so much.
Oh, that's how you read it? Okay.
Yeah, she totally was telling them themselves, like, don't bother going after this. Like, Gordon's clearly dangerous. Like, just get the hell out and be safe. That was definitely not a spirit telling her that. It was definitely Bella just saying it in a way that
without saying, yeah.
She can't tell them that she cares because she's Dean coded.
She brings up the fact that she doesn't like people holding grudges against her as well in this. Very much like she didn't like having debt for people or be indebted to people. She's the most like realistic character.
Like, yeah, so far I feel it because she's completely like, this is some rubbish. Like,
yeah.
These guys aren't worth my life. Like, they're
exactly
cool guys, but I mean, they're not worth my life.
So in the next scene, we see Gordon. He's now chained to the ceiling, very much like the other women in the warehouse. We're sort of seeing Gordon's point of view, and like we hear like a sound, and it's kind of confusing as to what it is. He looks to a light, and it becomes super bright. He's fully transitioned because they were saying that to Lucy earlier in the episode that like, is the sun hurting your skin? Is the light sensitivity? And she's like, yeah, that's all happening. And she was saying she could hear the heartbeat of somebody half a block away.
Yeah.
So we're sort of seeing that through Gordon. But at the same time, this is where Dixon was reckless because Gordon knows the strength of the vampire, but he's also a hunter, so he has experience in getting out of these situations, like getting out of being captured. And now you've just given him super strength.
Well, this is it. So yeah, he does manage to get free. The girls ask him for help and it cuts away. What I think is really interesting is that Dixon called Gordon the most like prolific vampire hunter, basically. He was responsible for the vampires being almost extinct, etc. So he's killed a lot of vampires. You would think that at some point he would have researched how to turn someone back. He doesn't consider anything in this episode about how to turn someone back, which I think points to the fact that he never researched it because he sees them as such monsters.
Yeah.
He would never have even tried to turn anyone back from a vampire, which again is his own like hatred blinding him, right? Because maybe if he had, he would have been able to get out of this situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, that again, it comes down to that black and white thinking. Once you have turned, that's it.
Exactly. And that's shown here. So in this next scene, we basically see him like tripping out from all the like vampire senses coming in. And he sees a guy fixing his car at the side of the road, and he kind of turns away from him and like stares at his own reflection for a bit. Such a nice shot, like such a good shot. Kind of like he's weighing something inside of himself. And then we see the guy like get into the car, and Gordon appears behind him and like just like chows down, full on attacks him. And I think that moment of reflection for Gordon was like, well, I'm a monster now. I have a past to act like a monster. Because of his black and white thinking, it's okay for him. Like, he can fully rationalize that. Like, I'm a monster. I am going to act like a monster now because I have no choice. Because he's put that on so many other vampires that they have no choice but to do this. He can't help but put it on himself. Like, there's an episode later on where Dean gets turned into a vampire. He has a lot more, like, strength of will, basically, to not feed on humans. And I think Gordon had the strength of will to not do it. But he was like, well, it's over for me. I have no choice, essentially.
And this definitely separates him from Sam in this episode, or his belief of Sam. There, obviously, when we get to the confrontation, the stuff that he says in that, he's very much projecting in that scene. But right here, I think you're right. While he's looking at himself, I kind of got the sense he was trying to fight the vampire teeth from coming in, but at the same time, once they started, he just sort of accepted it. Like, he looked at his reflection, he was like, I am a monster now.
Yeah. I think this will be really interesting to parallel when we see that episode where Dean gets turned, to see how it differs, because I think by that point Dean's thinking about monsters is even more like grayscale than it is now. I think it's getting there, but it's not quite yet, and I think that's what helps him resist against that.
I guess as soon as you kill your a family member because of like they've turned into a monster, you cannot turn around and have a grey point of view.
No.
Because that you can no longer rationalize what you did to your family member.
Exactly. And Gordon knows there are vampires out there who don't drink human blood. Like, he's fully been confronted with them in Bloodlust. So he knows there's another way that he could live without killing people. But he can't rationalize that self within, because of the same reason he killed his sister, who was a vampire. So if he could ever think that maybe there was a possibility she could have lived a life not killing humans, he can't look at that inside himself. I love Gordon so much. He's such a good tortured character. He
is. He's for a scene where there was no talking.
Yeah.
Sterling Brown.
So,
my God.
I want to do the same. I want to go and see some of his other like filmography stuff now, because I don't think I've watched loads of Sterling Brown's work, but if this is what he's giving here, like, I can only imagine like how he's acting now.
Yeah.
Great.
So we're back at the warehouse, and Sam and Dean are creeping down into like the sort of area that everybody was kept in. We see the bodies of the two women, and there's like, they're a mess. Their heads are gone, and there's like blood on the front of their shirts. And we see Dixon the vampire like on his knees, like crying, mourning the loss of his family.
Yeah. And
he's essentially given up. He's said, go ahead, kill me. They start to interrogate him, and he says, well, Gordon Walker is what did it. Gordon Walker was here. He's now regretting his decisions, essentially.
Yeah.
And like I said, had he not been reckless, and like, why did he leave? He didn't need to leave.
Yeah.
And I don't understand like why you would leave an experienced vampire hunter in a room with two vampires.
Like new vampires as well, like newbies.
Yeah. Had he forgotten that like nothing changes when you turn? Like, you're still the same person, you're just a vampire now?
I know. He did make an error. I think he does regret it. They kind of confront this vampire and be like, what are you doing? Why are you turning these women?
I've lost everyone I ever loved. I'm staring down eternity alone. Can you think of a worse hell?
Well, there's hell.
I didn't care anymore. Do you know what that's like? When you just don't give a damn? It's like being dead already.
Dean kind of looks down and away, and it's just the parallels are so obvious. I mean,
yeah.
Who is the vampire supposed to be? Is it Dean or is it Sam? Because he's talking about being alone forever, which would be Sam when Dean dies. He's also talking about not caring anymore and completely giving up and being dead inside, which is very much Dean.
I mean, it could very much be that it's being both of them. He's presenting both sides of their situation to each other.
I like that.
So he's showing Dean that Sam is desperate, that he doesn't want to be alone for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And Dixon's also showing that he doesn't care anymore because he already feels dead.
Oh, that the alone for eternity thing as well, though. It's also very much Dean, isn't it? Because he's going to hell, and I don't think any part of Dean thinks that Sam would ever join him in hell. So they're going to be forever separated once Dean dies. In his mind. That's a kick in the teeth.
I mean, just, thinking on that, staring down eternity in hell.
Alone, without Sam.
Alone.
This isn't the only time that they face eternity without each other. The only time they kind of know that the other one's going to be there is in 1520, which is that's okay. I'm okay with that. Every other time they've died, they've always thought they're going to be separated in some way, because heaven as it exists in Supernatural is very much separated from the ones you love. You don't get to share your heaven with them. Hell is hell, so of course you wouldn't get to see your loved ones. And then even when they introduce the empty, because everyone's asleep all the time, you don't get to interact with anyone, right? Then there's purgatory as well, where you can't, like, purgatory is a constant battlefield. So yeah, you can make allies, but who knows if they're going to turn on you or not. Yeah, purgatory is different for me. I feel like if you'd asked Dean where he would prefer to go, it would always be purgatory. I think so too. Because of that. Because, oh yes, life is a constant battle, but at least you're with people you care about, which is basically his life anyway. So yeah, I do think it's interesting that they, the concept of purgatory, because right now they've only introduced hell. Like heaven's not really mentioned about. Obviously the empty is not even considered until way later. Like I feel like that's a concept that was Supernatural based only, because this vampire probably wouldn't have felt so desperate had he known that purgatory existed. Exactly, because he would have eventually been with his family and not having to face eternity on Earth alone, which is in itself a different type of purgatory, right? That limbo state that you get stuck in. Afterlife stuff is so interesting to me in Supernatural, like fully interesting, but I do think this conversation, how can a vampire mirror them so perfectly? Like, I know. And specifically Dean as well, is just, I love how they wrote this. I almost wonder if Dixon was supposed to be two different characters, because I know his actions are done out of desperation, but his actions are also inexcusable. Again, if you want to have a found family, he's not doing it in a way that this show has done it so far. Like the way that the found family has occurred is that they've helped each other and therefore they've gotten closer to each other. Whereas this, I don't think, there was there's a whole being reliant on him. Yeah. But it would be out, eventually, I would imagine they would still want to get away. Yeah, I do too. They would resent him for eternity. And I think the idea that you can just replace your family is kind of abhorrent in this show. Like, you can't, there's no replacements for them, right? Yeah. Which is interesting. Again, I feel like that this is almost making a negative comment about found family. That oh yes, you had your original family and they were killed by hunters, and now you're trying to replace them maybe with a found family, but that's a bad thing to do, and it's never going to work. Which is interesting, because that would be precisely what would be healthy for Sam and Dean to do if one of them died, right? That if Dean, Dean goes to hell at the end of this, if Sam had gone and found himself a family that he could have lived with and gotten okay with, he would have continued his life. The same with Dean. If Sam had died at the end of season 2 and he'd not sold his soul, the healthy thing for him to do was to find people that he could relate to, a found family, and carry on with his life. So it's interesting that I feel like this show's almost making saying that that's a negative thing to do, but maybe it's just because the vampires doing it in an unhealthy way. Yeah. I think that's what it is, rather, because we've seen that it can work with Bobby. This is it. I don't feel like the concept of found family is strong at this point in the series. I think we see Bobby, but although he's established as a father figure, he's not their dad at this point, to the point that he is later on. There's a point in the show that comes where it's Bobby is their dad, just outright is their dad, not just a father figure. He's doing all the things that a dad would do. I love Bobby, but I don't feel like it's here. And I feel like that was a turning point for them also finding other people too to be part of their family. But I don't feel like it's a main concept now. The main concept is looking out for your biological family. The codependency between Sam and Dean is very much the highlight of these series. So Sam's kind of investigating the bodies and says that their heads were ripped off. They weren't cut off, they were ripped off, which is just like, ew. Gordon, why? First of all. Second of all, ew. And they know that, so through that, they know that Gordon's a vampire now, because how else would he have the strength to do that? They don't show Sam and Dean killing Dixon in this. Do you think they let him go because he'd kind of changed his ways a little bit? Or do you think they killed him?
I think at this point they killed him.
I think so too.
We are inside Kubrick's RV. He hears a noise and Gordon is now behind him because he has obviously super speed. And he asks if Gordon's okay, and Gordon replies, not even close. Essentially, he reveals that he's become a vampire. I think it's very interesting that, I mean, of course, Kubrick and Gordon are not family.
No.
But, I feel like hunter partnerships could be seen as brotherhoods, especially between these two. I do feel like they have some sort of rapport that, like, they have maybe worked, like, it's the one person that Gordon can always rely on, almost. Yeah. So they must be somewhat close.
I agree. I think there is a brotherhood among hunters, and I think Gordon ruined that here, right?
Yeah. Well, so, this conversation of, like, Kubrick's like, okay, so you know what you have to do then, right? You know what I have to do to you. And Gordon is accepting of it.
Yeah.
He is like, yes, I understand that that's what you need to do, and I want you to do it.
You have to let me do one last thing first.
What?
Kill Sam Winchester.
Gordon.
It is the one good thing to come out of this nightmare. I'm stronger, I'm faster, I can finish him.
Gordon saying here that, like, he's going to do one last thing before he goes there, like, one last thing. And he does it while looking at, like, a crucifix, he says this, which I never pegged Gordon as religious, and it was odd to see that kind of, it was almost like he was taking over, like, a religious moment there to be like, I need to absolve myself of the sins that I've committed by this one good thing before I die. Which is, it's odd to me, but I guess he's killed people as a vampire now. He would see that as a sin, so would want to kind of cancel it out.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't necessarily think it's for religious reasons, though.
No, I think it's because he's all about balance.
Yes.
So I think it's more like in everything that he did in his human life, it was all good in his eyes. Not necessarily, but all good in his eyes. And now that he's become a monster, he has done the one bad thing of killing that man. And now he has to balance that out by doing the one good thing that he thinks he can do. And I think it's interesting that he then changes it to two good things at the end of this episode.
Yes.
Because of what he does next. Which is, Kubrick's like, yeah, I hear you. And he's grabbing a knife, and the soundtrack changes to hearing a heartbeat, because Gordon's listening to this guy's heart, like Kubrick's heart, because it's starting to elevate, because he's about to kill his friend.
Yeah.
And before, Kubrick gets a chance, Gordon turns around and essentially rips his heart out.
Yeah. And you're right. So now he's killed two people, so it makes sense that then he would now need to balance that with two deeds. I didn't pick up on that. That's really excellent. We see Sam and he's researching maps, so I presume he's looking for where Gordon might be. And Dean appears and he's found nothing at all either. Sam takes Dean's phone and takes the chips out because apparently Gordon could track them using their cell phones, which they actually finally thought of. It was a surprising moment.
I just wish they'd paid a little bit more attention to this one, because when Sam opens the back of his phone, there's no battery there and the SIM is just lying there. Like he'd done it multiple times and they didn't reset the prop properly.
Yeah, I love that.
So I just got took out at the moment for a second. I was like, no, this episode was so good. Anyway, very minor detail, and it shouldn't matter, but it does.
Yeah.
For how good this episode is.
It's a small thing. It's fine. Let it go, Annabelle. Let it go.
I will. It's gone. I had said it. It's gone.
Okay. So Dean's deciding to go after Gordon, and we see him loading the Colt. So he's not messing around. He's just going to take the Colt. He's not even going to try and behead Gordon. I think he knows he wouldn't get close enough. You know?
And I mean, it's a safer option. Like, why you have this weapon that can kill anything and everything, so why risk the chance? If you can shoot him, just shoot him.
Exactly.
I honestly feel like it would have been like, they see Gordon, they shoot him. That was how the plan was.
That's how it should go. That's totally how it should go. He's way too dangerous. He's a vampire with hunter skills. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Sam kind of says to him, like, you're going to get yourself killed.
I'll take care of it.
Well, Dean, you're not going by yourself. You're gonna get yourself killed.
Just another day at the office. It's a massively dangerous day at the office.
So what? You're the guy with nothing to lose now, huh? Oh, wait, let me guess. Because, it's because you're already dead, right?
If the shoe fits.
You know what, man? I'm sick and tired of your old stupid kamikaze trip.
Whoa, kamikaze? I'm more like a ninja.
It's not funny.
It's a little funny.
No, it's not.
It's like, oh, Sam, getting personal, are we? We're picking this fight to have now. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, he stole the words right out of the vampire's mouth.
Yeah.
Sam's trying to get Dean to be serious about this. Dean says,
What do you want me to do, Sam, huh? Sit around all day writing sad poems about how I'm gonna die? You know what? I got one. See, what rhymes with shut up, Sam?
Dude, drop the attitude, Dean. Quit turning everything into a punchline. And you know something else? Stop trying to act like you're not afraid.
I'm not.
You're lying. And you may as well drop it, because I can see right through you.
You got no idea what you're talking about.
he's finally pointed it out.
Bring it, Sam. Stop trying to act like you're not afraid. You're scared. Like, he goes, I know because I know you. And it's like, oh, Sam, because I've been tailing you or following you my entire life. And then it's not Dean's theme that starts here. And I thought it might be, like, I thought they would have done this for emotional effect, but I haven't heard it at all this season, actually.
None. I haven't heard it since the beginning of like season 2.
I know, I miss it. It comes back. But there's a sad... stop. There's a sad theme that plays through this conversation.
I mean, I've been looking up to you since I was 4, Dean. Studying you, trying to be just like my big brother. So yeah, I know you. Better than anyone else in the entire world. And this is exactly how you act when you're terrified. And I mean, I can't blame you. It's just...
What?
It's just, I wish you would drop the show and be my brother again. Just 'cause.
And this is what really brings Dean round, I feel.
Yeah.
That very heartfelt from Sam. You're my brother, I look up to you, and look how you're acting.
And, you know, he says, I know you better than anyone in the entire world. And I believe that. I do believe that at this point, that there is nobody else that knows. I feel like after season 3, they start to separate a bit. So they may not know each other as well as they should or did. He also says this is exactly how you act when you're terrified.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like it's a relief for Dean as well.
Yeah.
That he can sort of drop this, because I'm just going to say it's probably been about 5 months.
Yeah, I think so.
It may even be longer than that, because you know how Supernatural is weird. Like, it may be that like actually it's like 8 months.
Yeah.
So they actually have that. They really don't have much time left.
Do you think Dean sometimes forget that he's not traveling with John anymore? Like,
yes.
That he can kind of put down the facade and actually show how scared he is. I know he feels like he has to be strong for his brother, but he also felt that for John. Like, can you imagine if they were still traveling with John at this point and Dean had done this? I mean, first of all, John would murder him anyway. But
yeah, I think so.
Second of all, he would no way be able to show that he was in any way scared, because it was a choice that he made and he has to live with that now. And this is Sam telling him that it's okay to feel emotions, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, for Dean, it's hard, right? Because he has had to have this front up his whole life. And Sam doesn't really... Sam keeps stuff from him, but he does let Dean know when things are kind of getting too much eventually. Dean never really does that. He like represses it down and down and down until it's like a big ball of like anger, and then it like comes out explosively. I mean,
yeah,
who can relate to that? Like, honestly. And then... Yeah, I love Sam for this, because he is telling him, like, it's fine, dude.
Yeah.
Cry once in a while in the car. We'll put on some sad music. Just let it out. It'll be fine.
Exactly. And, I mean, you hear it in Dean's tone as well. Because, you know, he's been very jovial, and, like, even the joke that he made about, like, you know, shut up, Sam. is done in a different tone of voice to this. And it's not a resigned tone. It's like a, all right, let's get serious.
Yeah.
Because he's like, okay, I won't go out. We'll hold up here and cover our scent.
Like, I love the little sort of passing of time they do with them sat around. Like, Sam's looking out the window, and Dean is what looks to be shaving his arm hair with his machete. It literally looks like what he's doing. Like, he's clearly, like, testing the sharpness of it, but he's doing that by cutting his arm hair. Like, okay, Dean, fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be sharp, right, then?
You'd hope so.
The thing with this motel room, I was like, have they not slept?
No.
Because they're, like you said, the mattresses are against the window. They're not sleeping on that floor. They probably have just been, like, up for, like, 3 days.
Cool idea, guys. We'll be real sharp,
Yeah. Like, you're about to fight a vampire hunter.
Yeah. Get some sleep, guys. It's like, put the mattresses on the floor.
Yeah.
If Gordon's looking out for places, the place with the mattresses in the windows looks like a place where you might hide out, so, cool times.
Yeah, and, like, the mattresses are not going to stop him getting through the door or the window.
I don't know what this is.
Whatever. That was their logic. So as they're sort of waiting around, Dean's phone rings, his new phone, and Sam's like, well, who did you give the number to? Thinking it's probably Bella.
I thought it was Bella. Get that booty call.
Exactly. Dean says it was nobody, but it turns out it was Gordon on the other end.
Yeah.
And he found him because he was at the phone store, and which still doesn't really explain like how they would have got the number because the number is inside the box. But anyway, he says that, I'd rather you come to me. And they're like, well, we're not going to do that. That's, no. But it turns out he has a hostage, so they have no choice but to go save this woman. If you truly believe that Sam is the Antichrist,
I know.
like what in his actions beyond the fact that he is a monster, he's not human. Mm-hmm. I say not human in quotation marks. Is that really all it takes? Is for something not to be human, for you to be this obsessed?
Yeah, in Gordon's mind, that's fine. He even says it here.
Don't do this. You don't kill innocent people. You're still a hunter.
No. I'm a monster.
So being a monster trumps everything else he's ever done in his life. All the hunting that he's done, he's a monster now.
It also got me thinking, Gordon, not a monster, would still have done something like this.
Yes, he would have, yeah.
Yes, he still would have done something like this, especially when we find out what he did.
Yeah, exactly. And again, this just shows how black and white thinking doesn't work, because you're right. These are the actions of Gordon. They're not the actions of a vampire. They're Gordon's actions. So him being a monster doesn't change his personality. And that's true for nearly all the times they see monsters, is that it doesn't change their personality. Yes, it might give them some hang-ups like, oh, they need to drink blood now. Or like, they are times in their lives they have no control over, like I think of werewolves. But it doesn't essentially change their core of who they are.
Yeah, I mean, again, looking back at Hart and Maddie, she was still Maddie.
She was.
She was just also a werewolf.
Yeah, exactly. Sam and Dean, of course, arrive at the warehouse because they went. Yeah. They find this girl and they kind of get her out. I love that Dean kind of picks her up to carry her. Like, so cute. And as they leave the building, the shutter door goes down and Sam gets trapped inside the building and Dean gets trapped on the outside. And they do the really typical, like, shout at each other.
Sam! Dean!
There's a clip that goes around sometimes of they're at a convention and somebody's come up and said that their dad just likes to randomly yell Sam and Sammy around the house.
Yeah.
They then do it. And that will forever... I'm going to be, like, 15 years from now.
Yeah.
I'll just wake up one day and just be like, Sam! Sammy!
You need to get a dog or a cat or a pet called Sam. Just yell it out your back door. Sammy!
And then get another one and call it Dean.
Yeah, do it. Oh, I want this for you, Annabelle. I want this in your life.
Get 2 Rottweilers.
Yeah.
Called Sam and Dean, and then a cat called Cass.
I mean, you'd be living the dream.
Yeah, I would be. inside the room, if that Sam's in, all the lights shut out, which is very smart because we know that vampires have enhanced everything.
Yeah.
I loved this next sequence.
Yeah,
I do
loved it.
like the way that Sam's walking around very much stumbling in the dark, at a huge disadvantage, and Gordon is just taunting him the entire time. Again, Sterling Brown, excellent in this. Sent chills down my spine.
Yeah.
Like, it was intense. It was very much final boss mode.
It was, yeah. And like the camera work of just focusing on his mouth and his eyes, like, so you couldn't tell where he was, but you knew that he was like taunting Sam and watching him. I loved it. I loved it.
You know, this is very confronting for Gordon as well, because he says,
You have no idea what I faced. To get here, I lost everything. My life. But it's worth it. Because I'm finally gonna kill the most dangerous thing I ever hunted. You're not human, Sam.
and again, what we've been saying, that even if Sam's not human, which he is,
Yeah, he is.
he's still Sam. He's still Sam Winchester. That kid that you dismissed because he was weak. That was the whole reason you didn't like him in the beginning, because he wasn't a killer. Gordon here, he's facing everything. He's facing his, like we said earlier, his personal hell. Truly believes he's lost everything. He's lost his humanity, or what was, of his humanity, and he is just now in being 100% monster for no other reason that he was turned into a vampire.
I mean, Sam calls him out on that as well, because Gordon calls himself a bloodthirsty killer, and Sam says to him,
Don't talk about it like you don't have a choice.
I don't.
Yes, you do, Gordon. You didn't kill that girl.
No, I didn't. I did something much, much worse.
Gordon would have done this even if he wasn't a vampire. Like, I feel like he still would have turned that girl, which is what he did.
Well, so I think if he hadn't been a vampire and he was in that same situation of, like, in the warehouse where all those people, he would have killed one girl but kept the other one alive to draw them in.
Yeah.
I think that's what he would have done. Like,
with the vampires, yeah.
He would have used the fact that they're confused, still very much, like, still thinking they're human. Because all it was just a woman saying, "Help me," on the other end of the phone. Yeah. There was no context as to what was going on. There's nothing that changed about Gordon, apart from he feels that his actions are justified, like, because he's a monster.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, yeah, this woman's a vampire. Gordon turned her, and we cut to Dean realizing that she's a vampire. She kind of jumps at him, and he manages to push her away and reflexively kind of shoots her with the Colt, I feel. Yeah. He looks quite shocked by that turn of events as he's on the ground with the Colt in his hand. I don't think he wanted to necessarily shoot her. I think it was do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it was like a reflexive thing. But again, he still would have killed her either way. So yeah.
So we then cut back to Sam, and he's now sort of backed into a corner. Gordon gives like quite a long speech here. He says that that Sam has a lot of people fooled.
We're the same now, you and me. I know how it is walking around with something evil inside you. It's just too bad you won't do the right thing and kill yourself. I'm gonna. Soon as I'm done with you, 2 last good deeds. Killing you and killing myself.
He thinks he's more righteous than Sam because he says to him, "You're walking around with an evil inside you, but like, too bad you won't do the right thing and kill yourself." Gordon's like, "Well, I'm going to. I'm evil now, and I'm going to take care of that myself after I've killed you." So in some way, he thinks he's morally better than Sam because of that, which is like seriously messed up thinking. Because Sam isn't evil. Like, going back to Sam isn't evil. He has had. Isn't it interesting that they were both turned in some way through blood? Like, so they are very similar, and it was both not their choice, right? Sam didn't ever ask to be given demon powers. Gordon didn't ever ask to be a vampire. So yeah, he's right. They are very similar. And you would think that would make Gordon more sympathetic to Sam. But instead, he's stuck in this thinking, I need to rid evil from this world. And you're one of the evil things. And so am I now. So why can't you think like me and do the same things that I'm doing? It's
yeah. I do wonder, because we know that Gordon has also killed one of the other special children, and he then calls Sam the Antichrist. So he knows that he's probably the last one, or he knows that he's the last one.
Yeah.
As well. So he really does think that is going to be the best thing that he's ever done.
I have a theory. Do you think Gordon thinks he's maybe more righteous than Sam for a different reason? How does he know? Because he does call him the Antichrist. How does he know that he's the final girl? Like, how does he know that? Do you think maybe there are other forces, possibly at this point, whispering in Gordon's ear that are saying Sam needs to be taken out? And I think that would be super interesting if, like, heavenly forces were maybe getting involved before their time. Because he's very focused on Sam, and he seems to have more information than he maybe should have at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, especially with like Kubrick's character as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder, had Gordon lived past this episode and gotten more into like the angel stuff, whether we would have seen something like that.
He would have been on their side. He would have been on the angel's side. I think they don't really want Sam to go down though, do they? They want the thing to happen, but it would have slowed stuff down. The other thing I'm thinking is Kubrick saw Sam do all that crazy stuff, and maybe give Dean powers at one point. That's how it looked from his point of view in Bad Day at Blackrock. So what has Kubrick told Gordon? Like, oh, he suddenly has all these crazy powers. So maybe Gordon's only conclusion is that he is the final one, that he's finally got all of his Antichrist powers. But I just think it's interesting that he seems to have more information than he should have, possibly.
Well, it's clear that he's also tortured demons to get the information about Sam.
That's true.
And we already know that there are Sam fanatics in hell, and that there are demons that will follow him no matter what. So he may have just been Sam might have been unfortunate enough that Gordon had been in contact with a demon that was like, Sam is our leader.
Yeah, some demon somewhere called him the Boy King, and like Gordon was like, all my worries are just completely justified. He's definitely a bad dude. Yeah, that's pretty good. Because
I'm still confused at this point in the story of like what Sam is supposed to be. Like, I know he's supposed to be Lucifer's vessel, right? But not really at this point.
Yeah.
Because, like, is he supposed to be a demon? Or is he supposed to be a human with demon powers? Like, but how does that make him not human?
So, as far as I read it, they didn't really decide on this vessel thing till this season 4. And I think that the demon powers that he had was going to make him a leader of the army, basically one step under Azazel. So Azazel was making these children to keep the demons in line to grab power, essentially. Maybe even try and grab power from Lucifer, which explains possibly why he would want to make Lucifer's vessel loyal to him. I have a whole theory about this now. that Azazel was like power grabbing and trying to disrupt the plan for specific reasons. And like, what better way to do that than make Lucifer's vessel very loyal to you and be like, no, I wouldn't. Of course I wouldn't say, like, go against your word and say yes to Lucifer. This leaves Azazel in charge. I don't know. I have theories about that. But I think at this point, he was supposed to be the leader. There's a power vacuum now, and some of the demons think that he should fill that power vacuum, and some of them don't. But we don't really know what's going on with his powers, which is part of the did he come back wrong situation.
Yeah, because he said that he doesn't have them anymore.
Which I don't think is true.
No, I don't think so either. And I think this next scene proves that.
Oh, do you? Explain. Go for it.
So, okay. After they've spoken, Gordon attacks Sam, and they go through a wall, which I was kind of thinking, like, Gordon was such a good advantage in the dark that, do you think he just underestimated his power and like went a little too hard, and that's why he went through the wall?
Yeah, possibly. I think so. That would make sense.
I think it was more of a mistake than anything. And essentially they start to fight. So I know that you've also said that, you know, they fight so many like powerful monsters that they are just strong. But so, I mean, they start flying. Dean also gets there and gets attacked by Gordon's second vampire bite of the episode.
Yeah. There was something, I don't know, that vampire bite was not good to me. I did not like it. The way Dean kind of goes limp against the wall, I did not like this. Sorry.
Yeah.
He fully went for Dean, which he's never really had a grudge against Dean, so I guess it shows that he's fully a vampire now, that he just like tried to, you know, he bit him. But it was, yeah, I don't know, Dean gave up really easily when he got bit, I feel. He dropped the colt. Like, it was, yeah, I don't know, that I feel like I want to make a big deal out of this, but I don't know what really to say about it.
I don't know, that didn't affect me as much.
I don't know why. I don't know why. I just feel like Dean gave in really easily to Gordon as soon as he bit him. I don't know why. I just felt it. Like, he just sort of went like okay, this is happening. Maybe it's the whole, you know, recklessness.
I don't know. I think he's over that at this moment.
We'll see in the next episode.
I mean, specifically like this moment, like this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not like in terms of everything, but
it could be seen as a full, like, complete rejection of Gordon being a hunter, because he does kind of respect Dean, I feel like, in some way, and for him to bite him as a vampire is kind of like, oh yeah, he fully is a vampire now. I don't know. Definitely. It was a moment for me.
Gordon, they start fighting again, and then he manages to grab like a piece of barbed wire, and this death really stuck out. Like, I didn't remember this is how Gordon died, but when it came to this episode, I was like, oh yeah, I remember how he died. This idea that he can pull the barbed wire strong enough to decapitate Gordon is what makes me think that he still has his demon powers. Yeah. But at the same time, we know that like Sam and Dean have the like whole mum adrenaline syndrome thing where they can suddenly get super strength when they see the other one get hurt.
That's true, yeah. Mama bears. Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's also what it was. This was too drawn out. Yeah, I think this went on for a little bit too long. But at the same time, if they'd done it too quickly, they would have been like, well, how did Sam do that?
Yeah, that's true. It did have effort in it as he like decapitates Gordon. Like, it showed that it was a difficult thing to do. Also, a little bit of like Sam's hatred for Gordon. It takes a lot. You have to really hate someone to decapitate them with a bit of like wire, honestly. And because it does take a long time, and it showed that in the show. So I think part of it's that as well. I didn't like it. I didn't very much appreciate how like gruesome it was, but I do think it says a lot about Sam.
I mean, yeah, he had his hatred, but I feel like he wasn't pleased about it.
No. The thing is, this also does play into like, did he come back right after Dean resurrected him? Because once he's killed Gordon and like Dean gets up and sees Gordon's body, he gives Sam a look like, really? He looks surprised that Sam did it, and he...
You just charged a super vamped out Gordon with no weapon. It's a little reckless, don't you think?
Which is a dig at Sam, because he has been calling Dean reckless this whole episode. But also, it's like, he just took on a souped up Gordon with a bit of wire and killed him. Like, Dean is, I feel like, impressed but concerned.
But at the same time, again, I wonder if he's more shocked at the sort of violence of it rather than that he did it. I do think it's demon powers, but then at the same time, I do think it's just their natural strength and the adrenaline of the whole situation. And I think it was just a dig. I don't think he was having thoughts about like Sam not being brought back, right?
I don't know. He gave him a look. The thing is, it's a very Dean way to kill something. Think of the vampire in Bloodlust and the chainsaw. Like, you know, it is kind. There's a lot of things in this that they have previously done with a different one of them, or Dean specifically. Think about the flinch in Heart and the vampire beheading in Bloodlust. And they kind of like, oh, let's have Sam do that this time.
So I was going to say, do you think he's not brought back right because he's acting like Dean?
Well, I'm not saying that's right, but that's what Dean thinks. But he's looked up to him since he was 4 years old. We've already established this as well, so maybe he's just acting like his big brother at the moment. Yeah, I liked Gordon as a character. I'm going to miss him.
Me too. He definitely gave a more rounded out view of potential hunters in this world.
Mm-hmm.
That there are those out there who can't really be trusted. I know it's been somewhat implied, but this Gordon in particular is like, he's always been a bad guy.
Yeah, he's a really good antagonist. I really enjoyed him because he just shows a different side of hunting that we don't normally see in Supernatural. It's John's version of hunting.
Yes.
Right. It's who Sam and Dean would be if they'd stayed with John longer. Mm-hmm. If he hadn't gone and, abandoned them. If, maybe if Dean had never found Sam. Like, we see how Dean could have turned out through Gordon, and I think that's really interesting. And I appreciate that he, I do appreciate his character. I'm sad. I kind of wish he'd lasted longer. I feel like he would have been good for the B-plot. Some of the B-plot stuff could have really involved Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of selling them out constantly, trying to get them arrested. Trying to kill Sam at the same time as getting them arrested could have been pretty good.
I mean, how amazing would that have been if he'd come back for like Purgatory and like seen Dean there?
Right, exactly. Oh, yes, I wanted that. Or what if Gordon had been Jenny the vampire?
Oh God, that would have been that would have hurt a lot more.
Also, what a great cameo that would have been to been like, oh my God, Gordon. Because if he'd got away as a vampire here, like you would have assumed he would have died or whatever. For them him to then come back in the final episode as a vampire and be like, well, you're still evil, and like them to have that full on fight, that would have been amazing. I actually would have loved that. Gordon should have come back.
He somehow, in the multiple portals that they opened to Purgatory, because he is a hunter.
Yeah,
he would have been able to figure that out.
Oh, Look, I wanted Gordon to come back. Yeah, Purgatory, whatever. He should have done. It would have made a great sort of resurgence of his character arc, I feel.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think he deserved a redemption arc. I wanted him to still be an antagonist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he definitely... Though...
You wanted a redemption arc for him.
Well, no. I was gonna say so, but then I was like... Because I was going to say he would have learned something in Purgatory, but he wouldn't have.
He wouldn't have, no.
He would be thriving in Purgatory like Dean does.
Yeah. So for them to meet would have been perfect. Oh, yeah. Great. We don't know Purgatory exists yet, but that is an extremely ironic ending for Gordon to end up in Purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, extremely fitting for him to end up in Purgatory. Oh, this final scene of this episode, I cried. I did. I'm having an emotional day, so I cried at this scene. So it's daytime. Clearly everything's okay now. Sam's got beers in a cooler and he's handing one to Dean, who's fixing the Impala like he's under the hood. Mm-hmm. And Sam asks him if he's found out what's made that rattle, and Dean says like, not yet. And like asks Sam to hand him a wrench. And as he kind of takes it and puts it into the engine, Dean pauses and kind of looks at Sam and then decides to show him how the Impala works.
Mm-hmm.
It's a carburetor.
Carburetor.
Yeah.
Very good.
What's with the auto shop? What, you don't mean you want...
Yeah, I do. You fix it.
Dean, you barely let me drive this thing.
It's time. You should know how to fix her. You're gonna need to know these things for the future. And besides, it's my job, right? Show my little brother the ropes.
Dean's pointing stuff out to him and asking Sam questions, and he's getting them right, and Dean's doing like a little proud like nod at him, and it makes Sam ask him what's up. Okay, this was the bit where I cried. Dean hands Sam a socket wrench, and like that shouldn't be emotional in any way. But like the metaphorical, like handing over the keys of the Impala, like handing over the like inner workings of his car is just. First of all, we know the car is a metaphor for Dean, so he's kind of handing him his like inner workings, his emotions. First of all, secondly, he's physically handing him like something that could fix the Impala, and then saying to him like, you know, you need to learn how to do this for the future. He kind of watches Sam fix the Impala, and I just, I first of all, the symbolism of Sam fixing the Impala that's Dean, right? So that talk they had a big impact on Dean, I think, and has shown him that it's okay to be like a little bit vulnerable around Sam. Literally, Sam's in the engine, anyway. And second of all, like the handing over of the reins to him because he knows he's gonna die and go to hell. It's just too much. It's too much.
Which is also why I think this is closer to the end for where they're at.
Yeah.
Rather than like 6 months or maybe 5 months in. I really do think that they're very close to the end.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I don't know. I kind of like the idea that it's like a halfway point and that Dean's reached acceptance at the halfway point of this year. But I agree with you that it's probably later on because that's how time works in Supernatural. I don't know. I love everything about it. I don't know how to fully express my love for this scene. It's so bright. It's so nice. And like, it's just such a quiet moment between them as like brothers, like him actually showing him something that's been like deeply personal for Dean.
It's these moments that make the show. Like we've always brought up the fact that we want to see them be doing this kind of thing because of this.
Yeah,
this idea that, and you know, we had mentioned it before in season 2 that like how healing would have that been for Sam and Dean if they had rebuilt the Impala together.
Yeah, I agree. They should have.
And we're having that moment now. And it's everything.
It's everything. But I love the Impala as symbolism for Dean because you're right. In season 2, I feel like Dean had to rebuild that Impala himself. As much as he should have got Sam's help, he didn't because he needed to pick himself up.
Yeah.
So he needed to rebuild the Impala by himself. And we all know that Sam should have helped him, but Dean wouldn't let him. Here, having Sam fix the Impala with him is showing that he's seeing them more as like a partnership, I feel. And that he is finally kind of letting him into the kind of like healing him a little bit almost from his like emotional pain. I don't know. I read a lot into it, but I love it. The passing of the socket wrench is just...
It hit you.
It really did. It really hit me. Dean really thinks he's going to die and that he needs to teach Sam this so he can look after Impala. I do love, and I do find funny, that in nowhere in Dean's mind does he ever think that Sam would sell the car. I mean, if Sam sold the car, Dean would haunt him. And who cares? Yeah. He would drag himself out of hell to haunt Sam and be like, "Where's my car?"
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved it. It was a great quiet moment to end this episode. For an episode that was all about being like accepting that you're alone and like giving up and like giving into your like the bad side of you, to then see this like real nice moment between the end. It was like, this is Supernatural.
Yeah.
Honestly.
From that intense fiasco, we have a very supernatural Christmas, which is quite fitting. I know that this is coming out after Christmas, but it's still like the Christmassy season.
Yeah, we're close enough, guys.
I love these themed episodes.
Me too. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to be fully in the Christmas spirit because although this is coming out in January, we are recording this in December. So I am going to be wearing a Christmas hat. So you can all imagine that while you listen to this.
Maybe, actually, I don't know if your Christmas hat has a bell on it, but...
It totally does. You think
it does?
You think me, the Queen of Christmas, would not have a hat with a Christmas bell on it?
Well, you know, I should have not said that.
I have a full dress, a Santa dress that has bells all along the collar. I will be a jingling and a jangling.
Hells yeah.
So at the end of the episode, we'd like to thank our friend and yours, the Pixel Agora. Please, if you do love our logo, go and check out our Redbubble where you can buy that on some cool stuff, and some of that money goes back towards the artist as well. You can comment and talk to us on all the different social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Tumblr. Generally most active on Tumblr at the moment, but if you post somewhere else, we will see it and eventually reply. And keep interacting with our Spotify questions. Thanks.
So we met a potential foe. We know that he was once a great hunter, and he still is a great hunter in Purgatory. So we ran away real fast. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.